Hello listeners and welcome to this week's episode of the Conspiracy Vault. For this episode, I took the recommendation from long-time listener Epicurus, who directed me towards this subject through Reddit. It was a phenomenon I had not come across until I began this research. Today's topic is gangstalking. So gangstalking, or targeted individual, TI, according to roehampton.ac.uk, the general definition accepted by professionals is that gangstalking is when a person believes they are being stalked, followed, spied on, and attacked by a group of people or organisation. The popular question that surrounds this topic is there merit to this, or is it a symptom of potentially underlying mental health conditions? That is what we are going to look into today. Let's start with some heavy statistics on the term stalking itself. These are only UK-based statistics from paladinservice.co.uk, the National Stalking Advocacy Service, so there is room to assume that figures could be vastly different in other countries. The website reads, "Stalking is one of the most frequently experienced forms of abuse. It is insidious and terrifying and can escalate to rape and murder. We need to treat stalking with the seriousness it deserves. There are many misconceptions about what stalking is about. It is not romantic. It is about fixation and obsession. It is a crime and it destroys lives. Stalking is a pattern of repeat and persistent unwanted behaviour that is intrusive and engenders fear. It is when one person becomes fixated or obsessed with another and the attention is unwanted. Threats may not be made, but victims may feel scared. Even if there is no threat, this is still stalking and it is still a crime." Data from the Crime Survey of England and Wales shows up to 700,000 women are stalked each year. Although the British Crime Survey estimated 5 million people experience stalking each year, but there are no official statistics on the percentage of cyberstalking. 1 in 5 women and 1 in 10 men will experience stalking in their adult life. Office for National Statistics stated it was 1 in 6 women and 1 in 12 men. In 2013-14, Child Protection Services figures revealed that 743 stalking offences were prosecuted, whereas 9,792 were prosecuted for harassment out of the 61,175 allegations recorded by police. Therefore, only 1% of cases of stalking and 16% of cases of harassment recorded by police result in a charge. Victims do not tend to report to the police until the 100th incident. The Workplace Violence Research Institute found that 90% of corporate security professionals had handled 3 or more incidents of men stalking women in the workplace, and claimed stalking was related to homicide in 15% of cases. 75% of domestic violence stalkers will turn up at the workplace. 79% of domestic violence stalkers will use the work resources to target the victims. 1 in 2 domestic stalkers, if they make a threat, will act on it. 1 in 10 stalkers who had no prior relationship, if they make a threat, will act on it. Statistics show that the majority of victims, 80.4%, are female, while the majority of perpetrators, 70.5%, are male. The Metropolitan Police found that 40% of the victims of domestic homicides had also been stalked. So what is gang stalking and how did the phenomenon gain this name? A study on NCBI, a journal article written by Lorraine Sheridan, David V. James and Jaden Roth, reads, "Since the turn of the millennium, another term linked to stalking has gained currency in the media and on the World Wide Web. That of group or gang stalking. Stalking generally involves a single stalker who may occasionally recruit others into stalking by proxy, their involvement usually being unwitting. By contrast, reports of group or gang stalking describe stalking by multiple individuals who engage in a shared endeavour with a group purpose. For research purposes, the number is taken as 3 or more, although in many instances those suffering from the phenomenon have reported the involvement of far greater numbers." The United Nations Human Rights Office of the High Commission website offers a document that goes into detail about different methods potentially used by gang stalkers. They read, "Harassment techniques include 1. Surveillance, being followed, electronic surveillance, computer or phone hacking, monitoring all online activities or bugging the home. 2. Profiles are built to identify any and all weaknesses and insecurities to be used later. Information often obtained through sexual partners or trusted people in their lives. 3. Conditioning where victims are sensitized to certain stimuli, such as everywhere you go, someone will cough as they walk past you. Number 4. Anchoring, where someone will provide false rationales for the harassment. Often many possible rationales are planted to keep the victim confused, and the focus of the harassment cycles from one possible reason to another, round and around, so as to keep the victim guessing in a half-perpetuating guessing game, where every scenario you are to blame, and causes self-doubt, fear, intimidation, and ultimately a cycle of destructive thoughts. Number 5. Mobbing, or true gangstalking, where everywhere you go, you will see an overt display of people following you and often use words you have been conditioned to and your name to draw your attention. Number 6. Street theatre, where a small group will perform an overt activity like a fake confrontation or scenarios designed to test your reactions. Number 7. The use of directional speakers, which have the ability to direct sound to a single individual in a crowded room. This particular item is ultimately the most used and is often referred to as a V2K or voice to skull, which is used extensively in the psychological breakdown of the victim. Number 8. The use of electronics to affect your eyesight and balance, which was originally developed for the military and police crowd control called dazzling, and even the ability to make you vomit. Number 9. Sound campaigns, which is a community harassment technique where abnormal levels of sound are directed at the victim and their home. This includes cars deliberately braking or accelerating when they pass, people talking excessively loudly at all hours of the night, amplifications of sound, etc. Number 10. Sleep deprivation. This is perhaps one of the most insidious tactics used, where victims are woken multiple times a night and can be kept awake for days at a time. Number 11. Baiting. Baiting or entrapment, where victims are harassed to the point that they lash out and commit a crime such as assault, break and enter, or vandalism as they try to locate the source of the harassment. Number 12. Gaslighting, which is a form of psychological abuse where someone will actively try to undermine victims and try to make them doubt themselves so that they will lose all self-confidence and self-esteem, and therefore are easier to manipulate and push towards the mental health pathway. Number 13. Black bag jobs is a term when a harasser breaks into a victim's property and places something or deliberately moves something. The purpose is to cause self and fear that their property is being accessed, which harassers try to then sell as paranoia. 14. Propaganda and disinformation is also the other key element to suppress knowledge of this practice, as its effectiveness initially requires the victim to be unaware of the existence of gangstalking, gaslighting, or the electronic technologies such as directional speakers, so huge amounts of time are devoted online to creating disinformation sites which attempt to discredit victims by pushing their mental health agenda. And number 15, further to the above, gang stalkers rely on disbelief and discrediting, and as such, much of the harassment is designed, at least initially, to mimic mental health issues. They also rely on their abuse being so extreme, so pervasive, so fundamentally immoral, as to be disbelieved, and victims subsequently resort to photographing, videotaping, and sound recording their everyday encounters to disprove the countless unfounded claims made against them, especially in relation to gaslighting, which gang stalkers try to turn around and paint the victims as paranoid or irrational. Victims are made to feel helpless as every attempt to defend themselves is used against them, and when they seek help, they are met with disbelief or open hostility. There is one notable event that springs to mind when discussing the potential of gang stalking and the threat someone may feel when being a targeted individual, and that was the 2012 Washington Navy Yard shooting. Wikipedia tells us the Washington Navy Yard shooting occurred on September 16, 2003, when a 33-year-old Aaron Alexis fatally shot 12 people and injured 3 others in a mass shooting at the headquarters of the Naval Sea Systems Command in southeast Washington, D.C. The attack took place in the Navy Yard's Building 197. It began around 8:16 a.m. and ended when Alexis was killed by police around 9:25 a.m. It was the second deadliest mass murder on a U.S. military base, behind the 2009 Fort Hood shooting. A Wired article written by Alan McCuffey reads in 2013, Washington Navy Yard shooter Aaron Alexis had been receiving mental health treatment, had anger management issues, and told Rhode Island police that he had been hearing voices and was being harassed through microwave mind control. Most people who heard that needed no further explanation for Monday's tragic events. They understood the 12 deaths and 8 injuries to be the sad result of severe mental illness, perhaps even paranoid schizophrenia. But before, and even after, the details of Alexis's difficult past emerged, many people on the fringe had instead opted for a range of conspiracy theories, just as they did in the Sandy Hook massacre. The conflicting reports as to whether the shooter was a civilian or a service member, the number of shooters involved, the incorrect identification of the suspect, and a whole host of unanswered questions were all fodder for conspiracy theorists of varying intensity to take to Twitter, YouTube, discussion boards, blogs, and other online outlets to assert the sometimes absurd and the sometimes plausible. For some, it was a false flag, a covert military operation. Some conspiracists suggest that Alexis was a targeted individual, or TI, the term of art used by anguished people who believe they're being gang-stalked by shadowy enemies, often in the government. The elements of Alexis's police report, covert microwave weapons, conspiracies and sleep disturbances are common elements in gang-stalking accounts. Of course, they're also common elements in schizophrenia, but even believers in those accounts didn't support Alexis's violent rampage. Aaron is a murderer. I do not agree on any level with his actions or guns, writes one poster to the Gangstalking forum. But this story has more evidence than most pointing to the use of microwave weapons, gangstalking. Another writes, using Aaron Alexis as an example could look bad. After all, he killed 12 people. He had made a choice to keep and use guns. I would hope any real TI would see the danger in keeping a gun. The perps could influence you, or even just take over your body, and make you use that gun on someone else, maybe even a loved one. The microwave weaponry theory would be just as absurd as some of the other conspiracies if the Pentagon hadn't been researching the possibility of using similar voice projection technology in the past as a non-lethal weapon. According to one report on the project, such a weapon would create a condition similar to schizophrenia. Application of the microwave hearing technology could facilitate a private message transmission. It may be useful to provide a disruptive condition to a person not aware of the technology. Not only might it be disruptive to the sense of hearing, it could be psychologically devastating if one suddenly heard voices within one's own head. Of course, the chances of mental illness versus microwave mind control greatly favour the former. On the Gangstalking subreddit, you can see at a glance the types of techniques people believe are being used against them as targeted individuals. Some post about their neighbours using technology to keep them awake and spy on them. Others talk about living in a cul-de-sac and having the entire street hate them and be conspiring with each other to harm the targeted individual through means of gangstalking. There is some Vice coverage on this topic on YouTube titled The Nightmare World of Gangstalking, where mob stalking or community stalking are also used in place of gangstalking. It mentions that experts have claimed that this could be linked to mental disorders such as delusional forms of paranoia. The video defines gangstalking as a form of organised harassment and surveillance. It is estimated that 10,000 people worldwide identify as victims. Josh Basil, MD, physician and author, talks of how these victims have found each other on the internet and that this has allowed a culture of bolstering or affirming each other's beliefs about being targeted individuals. We can see this on the subreddit r/gangstalking that has 16,682 members currently. Of course, these may not all be people who identify as targeted individuals, but rather people interested in the subject, people such as myself. What might cause someone to become a TI? The Vice video goes on to say that it could be your lifestyle, political views, social status, sexual orientation, religious beliefs, ethnicity, anything that could set you aside as an individual in amongst the masses. The video also goes on to suggest that most forms of gangstalking can be explained away, like potential UFO sightings, such as police sirens being heard at the same time each day, or helicopters going over the same house over and over, or even repeatedly seeing couples walk past you hand in hand. This form of gang stalking is what we explained earlier when we talked about street theatre, and it reminded me of The Truman Show with Jim Carrey, a film where imdb.com tells us an insurance salesman is oblivious to the fact that his entire life is a TV show, and his family members are mere actors. As he starts noticing things and uncovers the truth, he decides to escape. When watching this film, many of the types of gang stalking listed above can be seen, and the health effects of this on the main character are also visible. So where could these grandiose beliefs have stemmed? Where is the basis for any of this to be true? Well, there is a number of conspiracies to begin with, such as 9/11 being an inside job conducted by the US government to allow them to bring in new surveillance under the Patriot Act. Other things are legitimate conspiracies brought to light by the likes of Ed Snowden. An article on nrp.org written by Dave Davies reads in 2013, Edward Snowden was an IT systems expert working under contract for the National Security Agency when he travelled to Hong Kong to provide 3 journalists with thousands of top-secret documents about US intelligence agencies' surveillance of American citizens. To Snowden, the classified information he shared with the journalist exposed privacy abuses by government intelligence agencies. He saw himself as a whistleblower, but the US government considered him a traitor in violation of the Espionage Act. What Snowden had done was essentially taken top-secret information on how the US government was spying on its own people and made it public by seeking asylum in another part of the world and bringing the information to the attention of other nations. Shouldn't we all feel a little targeted knowing our government has been spying on our private lives? The Infographics show on YouTube has a video called 10 Surprising Ways the Government is Spying on You, saying how people are very dependent on the technology that connects them to the internet. The average American apparently spends 86 hours a month on their devices. The first way the government is supposedly spying on us is through something known as PRISM. This is linked to Ed Snowden and how our data is collected by companies that want to sell us things. The government says it is spying to protect us, but detractors say they are controlling the populace. Number 2 is intercepts. The National Security Agency, or NSA, can obtain texts, emails, passwords, phone records, and credit card information, according to Snowden. There are supposed collection systems that run through telecom services and intercept 1.7 billion communications a day. Number 3 is talking on the phone. NBC News stated that the US monitors every single phone call in the USA, and in 2015, the GHCQ hacked millions of phones by stealing encryption keys built into SIM cards. Number 4, all internet history can be obtained through NSA's KeyScore technology. Number 5, watching you on your laptop or phone cameras and use a plugin called Gumfish to take over someone's camera. Number 7, other connected devices such as Amazon Echo, Alexa, or the Google Nest listening to your every word. Number 8, closed-circuit security. CCTV is everywhere. You are always being watched. Number 9, texting. Using the Dishfire program, billions of texts with all sorts of personal information are intercepted every week. And number 10, the NSA coerces manufacturers to create items that can be manipulated, such as the Amazon Echo or the Google Nest. So again, with all of this information, is it really unbelievable that someone may think of themselves as a TI? With these proven government surveillance programs, aren't we victims and targets in some way? What about agencies not related to governments that spy? In 2002, the News of the World newspaper in England hacked the phone of missing teen girl Millie Dowler. Amanda Dowler, known by friends and family as Millie, was last seen in March 2002 on her way home from school. She was found 6 months later. Her remains were located 20 miles away. She had been brutally murdered. But as her parents spent 6 months agonizingly looking for her, her phone remained switched on. In the first weeks of the search, Millie's parents would leave voice messages until one day the inbox was full. No more voicemails were accepted. Still, they phoned every day and tried to leave voicemails. It was no use when the voice box was full. Until one day, it wasn't. Millie's mother was able to start leaving voicemails again, filling her with hope that Millie was listening and deleting old voicemails, allowing space for new ones. One day, when the family left a voicemail for Millie, they told her they planned to look for her along the old road they lived on. They were ambushed by the News of the World reporters. Shaken up and unsure how they knew how to find the family there, it later came out that the reporters had in fact been the ones hacking Millie's phone, deleting voicemails by correctly guessing Millie's voicemail password and allowing space for more voicemails to come in so they could listen in and exploit the family during their time of turmoil. I recently covered this case in detail on my Patreon for anyone interested who would like to know more. The episode is available today at patreon.com/thecultvault. So here we have a distraught, unsuspecting family being monitored and surveilled through their missing daughter's phone. Again, isn't it plausible that someone can feel like a targeted individual in this day and age? I wanted to finish this episode with some examples from the subreddit around T.I.'s own stories. One reads, "Are they involved in gangstalking? My entire family are gangstalkers, and they have constantly lied to me to make me look crazy and force me to take meds. They sometimes blurt out stuff that is a clear indication of their knowledge of gangstalking, and it simply cannot be ignored. That's why I cut contact with my father. I couldn't tolerate remaining in contact with someone who was literally trying to kill me." The top response to this is absolutely. The one who's tried to throw me under the bus still denies everything or says, "We just wanted to help." They also write off everything as if it doesn't matter when I tell them about things. I have cut off 90% of my whole family and extended family, or they have cut me off. It's whatever though, I have all the people I need. Another account reads, "My neighbours upstairs are using some sort of dew weapons to give me headaches and not let me sleep or take naps. It's giving me great anxiety and has been going on since November. Sometimes I can hear their footsteps following me and I hear their machines turn on. I also hear some stuff on the side of the wall, like cables being moved down or something. Every day I hear him filling up some sort of bucket in his bathroom, and then turns on some loud machine, which makes a loud buzzing sound. I've been recording sounds and video of them harassing me. What do you guys think I should do? If anyone is willing to help, that would be great." The top comment in response is, "You have to rise above it. What I mean is, put some relaxing music on so you can't hear them. Meditate, go for long walks, etc. I've been through it. Also, don't underestimate your power to manifest either them moving out or you. You can try to put their names on a piece of paper, burning the paper and wishing them gone. It will work if you truly believe it." And lastly, another post said this, "Gangstalkers affect me daily and make fake temporary problems. When they leave me alone, it no longer affects me, but everyone ignores everyone doing it and I'm crazy if I mention it. They create fake resentments and literally control my emotions, so you can only imagine how difficult it is when they can do this behind closed doors. I can't say on a fourth step they were affecting me telepathically when I was drunk and was very new to being a TI, and that I cut myself multiple times 3 years ago and drank my own blood because they wouldn't leave me alone and influenced me to do so. They would say I'm crazy. They tap into old pain when I was 10 or 20 years old and put that in my 32-year-old mind. So I didn't recognise they were doing these things. I am stronger now because I'm aware that they can literally control my mind. So knowledge is my first step, but what else?" And the top comment in response was, "There are some actions people do while they're being peer pressured. I think it's an act that people show to try and convince them they're going crazy. But it's momentary. I've done some things too. When you feel crazy, you do crazy things. There is no step. You can either better yourself, continue to live as you do, or do even worse. This is all an experiment to see what choices you make. I do hope you find a way to not drink as much and straighten up. Maybe it will help you make better decisions and clear up your thoughts. Do not listen to them. Be proud of your past pain. It's what brought you here, and you're still living, right? Maybe you can just try doing better." So what are your thoughts on gangstalking? Is it possible that gangstalking is really a thing that is being perpetrated onto potentially 10,000 people worldwide? Is it mental health playing a huge part? Or is that what we are supposed to think? Let me know your thoughts and feelings around gangstalking. Contact me at cultvaultpodcast@gmail.com or follow me on Twitter and Instagram at cultvaultpod. I am your speaker, Casey, and this has been the Conspiracy Vault.